Welcome to Let Them Talk. No, this is not Paul DeRienza. My name is Shannon Taylor from The Conversation. Paul decided to go to Venezuela. And when he got to Venezuela, he liked it so much he couldn't leave. And he is even now on his way back from the airport. And I decided to pitch hit. But don't worry, we have Joanie Musi here and with an unmentionable guest, Sante. And I'm only showing him from the waist up because that way he stays unmentionable, but in a proper context. And I'm going to turn the show over to Joanie and to Sante. And our show, The Conversation, we've shared with Let Them Talk many times. We're most compatible. We've had guests in common like Professor Corey and others on subjects of verisimilitude approaching today's current events. But this guest is something that only Joanie can interview properly based on what I've heard in the last hour or so. And with that, Joanie, I turn it over to you. And welcome to the audience to Let Them Talk.
All right, thank you, Shannon, and I really appreciate your being here tonight. Shannon Taylor from The Conversation, that's seen every Tuesday night from 7 to 7:30 on the same channel. But this is Let Them Talk, and our guest tonight is Sante Scardillo. Welcome, Sante.
Thank you, Joanie.
And Sante is an artist. He's well known to the Let Them Talk audience because he's been on the Let Them Talk radio show several times, and he's appeared on Let Them Talk MNN version to translate for the Michelangelo Code. Isn't that what the show was? And he's a native Italian, so he translated from Italian to English, although he speaks several languages. But tonight we're going to talk about his art career, and it's the one thing we've never talked about before on the show.
It seems that way. I am so modest, am I? Well, first I would like in this vein to apologize to the audience because I don't do TV very often. So I've been told that the frame is very tight, so if you see me wandering to one side or the other, or you see my eyes wandering to one side, because the monitors are all that way, don't be scared, everything is still under control.
It's just so tempting to look at yourself, I guess.
Just talk louder. Pretend you're translating. Nobody would hear a translator talking under his breath.
Oi, gewalt, that's not Italian, but couldn't you just raise the volume, maybe, a little bit? Or,
Here, or
okay,
open up
right,
your mic.
Okay.
No one could raise the volume that loud.
Okay, all right. So, is this better? I hope so. Anyway, so here I am.
So you were born in Milan, Italy.
Yes, I
You came to the United States as an adult.
Yes, I did. I was 21 years old, and it was many, many, many years ago by now.
Now, did you study art in Italy?
Well, it's impossible not to study art in Italy. It's part of the curriculum from a very early age. And people were telling me that I was an artist since age 2 or 3 as the first, wonderful masterpieces that my mother loved so much. But some grown-ups who are not part of my family still have them framed in their studios, and some of them are important collectors. And so I guess maybe there was some truth in it, but I didn't really believe it until I came to New York. And that sort of changed things a little bit for me. And eventually I did go to art school here at NYU. I studied photography, film, and this was in the early 80s.
Now, that's one really interesting part of your career, that since I've known you, you've worked in a lot of different media. When I met you, you were a still photographer doing fine art photography. You've worked with the internet, the computer to sort of juggle things around on photographs. You've done, would you call it collage work, where you've put the words together with newsprint on different shapes, and you also sew.
Yes, I do, as it's evident from this masterpiece that I'm wearing here, which I made not for my vanity, but simply because I suffer from terrible sinus problems, so I apologize again, that's why I have to wear it. There is air conditioning here, which I'm not used to. And yeah, it's actually part of what it kept to be defined as my practice. That is, I've always been interested in the bits and pieces that other people throw away or that are discarded. Even when I was a still photographer, rather than going for the portrait shot or the straight documentary, I would look at things. Again, I'm sorry.
Okay, give me
What happened?
No, give me the
hat?
yeah. Give me
Oh, okay, but I needed that.
Okay, he's going to show the hat closer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's all embroidered.
Maybe
simply
back a
because it's
little bit
falling
because of the
apart.
light. Yeah, there we
it's
go.
falling apart, so every so often I have to keep working on it a little more. And I have several,
And those look like they're made from an old pair of jeans.
that's exactly what it is, because aside from my outside hats, which are heavy duty at this time of year, I have to have inside hats, I have to have summer hats, I always have to have a hat, because otherwise I get this terrible pains in the head, which is not working properly already. So we don't want that to get worse, or sinus compression and all this kind of stuff. That is not fun at all. So I'd rather wear the hats, even if maybe I don't look that clever. That's okay. I'll live with it and make the best of it. I love.
Well, you're warm.
Yes, I'm warm. I'm warm. Yes, I'm a hot head, and the hat keeps it that way, which is fine. But yeah, that's good that you take me that far back, because that gives me an occasion to think about things in perspective, because all I was going to say was to talk about the recycling.
The current
The
work
current,
that you're
yes,
doing,
yes.
as opposed to your entire career. But because I've known Sante for a very long time, I've seen him work in different media, do different types of shows, installations, straight photography shows, all different sorts of things. And
Yes.
so I
And
think the whole continuum is interesting, because in a way it all hangs together, doesn't it?
I guess it does. I mean, I guess, it does make sense to me, because I am the thread that joins every little part of it. But I never thought of it that way, so thank you. But, so yeah, even when I was taking pictures, I was always interested in what would normally be outside of the picture. And even now, it comes natural to me. The other night I was walking by, and I saw this pair of crutches that were hanging by a light pole, and I thought, a miracle! And I just started snapping pictures of
Oh, you
that
didn't drag
pair.
them home, though,
I
did you?
didn't drag them home. They were just there, but that's the title of the picture, is Miracle on Mulberry Street.
Okay.
That's what they were. Somebody must have been healed by, Our Lady
To be able to
of
leave
the
their
corner.
crutches behind,
Exactly.
yes.
That's the kind of things that and, they were there, who knows for how long, and who needs a pair of crutches, right? The hospital gives them to you if you're lucky enough to be brought
need
there,
this,
right?
yes.
And so, whoever decided they didn't need them anymore, there they were, and there I snapped them. I still do, the digital photography sort of brought me back into taking, because I have my camera in my pocket here, so I can just take it
Very
out
easy
and
to have it all the time with you.
yes, and before it was sort of a torture. I was camera accompanied even when I went to the toilet, in case I saw something that
That inspired you.
Yeah. So
Now tell us a little bit about the kinds of places you've exhibited, because I know you've been in galleries.
Wait a
all
minute, I
over
want to
New
hear
York.
about the camera to the toilet. I almost let that go by here.
Hey, you said you're going to shoot me from the waist up,
Yeah, all of a
which
sudden
is,
the
by the
camera to
way,
the
I'm
toilet.
sorry.
Well, who comes with a camera? Maybe
you
I was
snap
at the
back?
toilet at that time. I want the film.
Well-
First he sounded like me with all the headaches and the pains and the allergies, but now he diverged. Joanie, I've been very careful of this guy.
I promise that when you're in the toilet, I will not bring the camera. In fact, I won't even come in the toilet. I'll wait till you're done. But, hey, you said you weren't going to shoot me from the crotch down, which is a great loss for the audience, because they could see this embroidery that I put on my
Right, by
vintage pair of
repairing
jeans.
the
But
jeans.
maybe we'll do a dress moon for the audience, so they can really see what I'm up to, because this is the theme of my next show. But, so basically, yes, that's when I started taking pictures again, and I stopped. Life really comes into my practice. Is less museum and artistry based. Although those are references that are very much part of my upbringing, but I take inspiration from everyday life, and I always have. I've always done things like reading the newspaper and made art out of this.
Now the show that I helped you to install was done all on newspaper.
Mostly, yes.
Mostly on newspaper, and it was different shapes. And you also use words. I mean, in some ways you're a conceptual artist in that you're working with ideas and words and juxtaposing words, and at a certain point you also tampered with other people's advertisements and the words in that. And so do you consider yourself a poet also, or?
I guess Well, I did poetry readings in London in 1993, and that was really the beginning of that work that you saw at the show. Although I never thought that it would evolve that way, because what I was doing, I was cutting out headlines from Evening Standard, which is like the New York Post plus the Daily News. It's sort of a middle ways, and with those headlines, I would make these poems that I would put on a board and then read them out loud. And that work that you have seen is in fact headlines, but from the New York Times. And I managed to literally rip them off and make this sort of archaeological-looking artifacts. And in a way, media is the biggest waste, or generator of waste. And so recycling, I take the media, I regurgitate it back and make it say things that probably didn't intend to say in the first place, but were there. They were part of the message, and I pervert them for political purposes, which is one of my favorite pastime. In fact, one of my major inspirations is John Hartfield, who was this collage artist in Berlin during the Weimar Republic, and all the way through until Hitler basically tried to kill him, and he had to leave the country. And he was the one who basically invented political collage. And then there have been other references of people who have been working in the same vein, but that is really the Dada, the Surrealists, and I guess people have seen that kind of work if they went to the Museum of Modern Art last year. This
The Dada show,
yes,
which was wonderful, of course.
and it was in different places before. It started in Paris, and it went to Washington, and then it came to I saw it in both places, in Washington and New York, and it was really fantastic.
Now, have you ever heard a musician named Joshua Freed? He's somebody that has been on our show. And what he does is he takes FM radio and he mixes it through a computer program that he developed and turns it into music. But he's sort of, in a funny way, when you said regurgitating the media, I thought of him because he does it with sound, sort of what you're talking about doing with the print word.
Certainly, there are a lot of people who are doing that, and some have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, you would love Joshua.
No,
Fascinating.
It's great.
And somebody called in on the show that he was on and asked him about, did you ever consider using other sources for the sounds? In other words, heartbeat monitor or anything like that. And he said he thought about it, but he had decided against it because what he really wanted to do was to take the media and spit it back, take an existing thing that was being broadcast at that moment. So of course every show he does is different, and it's very interesting, very interesting theory and mission and way of doing things.
Yeah, I guess what I would like to do is simulate thought in people, because the media is pretty dominant in today's world, and many people are not even conscious of their potential, meaning in decisions that can affect their own life for the best, and that's why I say, part of it is recycling, and part of it is basically what I do in my daily life. That is, it makes me free. So, and that's what art should do for people. So, as you know, I bicycle everywhere. I cook my food. I wouldn't even think of food deliveries. I see people in my building getting it, and it smells foul. I mean, I wouldn't go close.
You
to
make
it.
all your own food?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I will go out to dinner with friends, but if it's a decent restaurant, because otherwise I prefer to invite people over. Yeah, if we're gonna go out just to go out, then come to my place. I'll cook for you. It's much better.
That's the Italian in him.
That's right.
That's the Italian, the artist, the Dadaist, all that sort of stuff is Italian. If he was Jewish, believe me, that he would allow other people to do the cooking.
Well, that's
preferably his wife.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it. But it is true that things that have been part of my upbringing have been coming back into my life. And again, it goes back to what do you do? How your art becomes your life, or vice versa. And when I was a kid, they made me swim in this chlorinated pools that I hated, and now I do it every day with great joy. It's and the cooking, same thing. When I arrived here, like everybody else who comes to New York, you don't think you can make your own food and it can be great. You just think, oh, okay, there are restaurants.
Well, all
you
these
know.
great restaurants.
Right. And then, you know, when you start to go to a few hundreds of them, you realize that, there are some really great restaurants, but you don't want to go to a restaurant every night. And then you realize that you really have the power to make.
Well, I can certainly vouch for Sante's abilities in the kitchen because I've had many dinners that he's made, and they've all been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you kindly. But, you know, it's really, I think that, and it doesn't take that long. That's the other thing. In fact, what made it down for me was this friend of my mother's who was also a friend of mine. That with our entire families were friends, and I was living here already. And she said, you know, I'm always amazed by how your mother can do these incredible things, and she throws them together in 15 minutes, you know, in no time at all. And that got me thinking. I thought, wow, I never noticed that, but I guess it's right, and that's the way it should be done. You know, it should be done. You can do great things, and you can do them relatively quickly, of course. If you're
And it increased your appreciation of your mom, I'm sure, too.
Well, of course.
To think
yes,
back
yes,
and
yes.
realize that.
Absolutely. I mean, I learned, you know, I learned to sweep the floor and make my bed when I was 4 years old and wash the dishes. And by the age of 7, I was cooking for my brothers, you know, not just for me. So, yeah, I guess all that would
Now, did you learn to sew from your mom, too, or did that come later?
More my grandmother.
Oh,
my grandmother was,
interesting.
yes. And she had this incredible sewing machine that you know, not electric, just with a pedal.
Oh, really?
And, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I sewed my first shirt when I was 18. But you
How'd
know,
you
with
do?
a machine. But I must say it was cut by a professional tailor. But,
Oh, I see. All you had to
yeah.
do was sew it
All I
together.
had to do was sew it together, which was still.
Well, you can
know,
still make mistakes.
Right,
doing
and I
that.
did. You know, I made a few mistakes, but.
Was it wearable?
Yeah, I
Oh,
wore it.
good.
I wore it for many years. Yeah, I might still have it.
In the
so-
archive
yes.
collection.
Yes, but so you know, the idea for the next show that is going to be in the same gallery where the last one was.
Okay, the
and
front room
the front
in
room
Brooklyn.
in Williamsburg.
Where
yes,
is that? What street is that
It's
on?
on Roebling Street.
Roebling Street in
which goes
Brooklyn.
straight to the Williamsburg
Wonderful
Bridge.
gallery.
Yes, and yeah, it's you know that I like working with them because they will let me say what I want without any censorship of any kind, especially if it's political. And
You call me the censor?
Not at all.
Is that what you're alluding to? Some degree of moral authority here? And by the way, it's Roebling Street, after John Roebling, the architect of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Well,
A
no,
person with such architectural and artistic talent as yourself should have some moral authority. Hanging still, your mother should be in the room to tell you off once and for all.
it wasn't just John; it was Washington, which was his son too, and they both were victimized during the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. The father died, and the son was permanently invalid, so much so that when they inaugurated the bridge in 1883, they had to have the parade walking all the way to the house so that he could see it because he couldn't move from the house. Is that good enough?
Oh, so he changed the.
Serves me right for trying to tell this guy. Never try and tell an Italian off. Never try. You waste your time trying to tell that Italian will always put you under the table right away.
Well, I like to say nobody like a foreigner to teach you your own history.
Well,
And-
Sante is very knowledgeable about history, and you have been on before to talk about historical matters when we were on the
That's
radio.
right, yes,
So,
you did.
so we do know about
Yeah, I think that would
Sante's
be-
expertise in
that would be
historical
my
matters.
My dream retirement is in a library full of historical texts, and just to, which, you know, in a way, I guess I am semi-retired already because I'm reading a book about the history of the papacy, and I got this from the public library, the New York Public Library. They do have
I love the New York
they
Public
have
Library.
books in many languages at the Donnell branch. We should give them a plug, definitely. Although it will be closing soon for renovations for some deal that they made.
But there's branch libraries all over the
and
city.
they will send all the
That's
language
right. You
books
can go
in
on the
all different-
internet and you can ask for a book to be sent to your local
Exactly.
branch.
Which
You
is
can return a
wonderful.
book anywhere. The New York Public Library is one of my most favorite facilities in New York.
Yes, I think if I end up making any money, I can already commit.
You'll
to
be another
something.
Carnegie.
There will be something in my will for the New York Public Library.
All right,
for sure,
excellent.
For sure.
Yeah.
But so that's where I got this book about the papacy, and it goes, from St. Peter's all the way to the last one, and
Paparazzi.
Yeah.
That's what I like to call them.
It's very good. I just call it razza, but yes, not well. Well, I guess we don't have to go into controversial subjects. Enough said, I am an atheist, but I am conscious.
But you were probably brought up Roman Catholic.
Oh yes, very much so. Baptized and
I mean, that's the
confirmed and all that.
majority religion in Italy.
Oh, very much so. Yes, yes. Majority, about 98% of the population.
The only
the other 2%, like me,
Or people that married Italians.
Yes. And of course, now there is immigration from North Africa,
Right.
so there are many.
Which changes things a lot. Yes.
And it's becoming a little more cosmopolitan.
So tell us when your next show is going to be.
I wish I knew.
Oh, so we haven't set a date yet. Okay.
We haven't set a date. I'm working on the concept because what I would like to do is to really make the way I live my life the centerpiece of this. And
Are you going to move into the gallery?
At least for the daytime.
Okay.
I hope my gallerist is watching, or is not watching this, I should say, because he doesn't
He'll
know.
be like, what?
I just said, I had a concept for a new show, and he said, oh, great, yeah, let's talk about it, but we haven't talked about it yet, so it's going to be interesting. But, yeah, no, I will be there for the daytime. I will be there as if I were in my studio and do my work and talking about it with the people who want to, or don't,
Who
they
stop
just
by
come and look around. And the recycling has been a theme.
So that's going to be sort of the centerpiece of this show.
It's been a way of living for me because I was surrounded by piles of newspapers. My father is a journalist, and he brought piles and piles of paper. So since age 7, when I realized that you could get a few pennies a kilo for this stuff, and I said, really? So I was an instant, eager recycler. I wasn't making any money because I was giving it to the parish.
I was going to ask if you had paper drives in Italy, because when I was a child, Shannon, I don't know about you, we had paper drives in school.
I was recruited into the recycling club in my junior high school and high school. I was an awful recycler. I couldn't lift the paper. I was afraid of the machines. I liked to save everything, so I didn't like to throw anything away. But I believed in ecology from my first days. I believed in the environment from my first days. And I believe Paul is knocking. We hear Venezuela at the door. Here he is. Speaking of recycling from Venezuela, I'm gonna turn the mic right over to Paul. Here you go. Here is Venezuela. You're on the air.
Well, we only have a few more minutes. I had quite an adventure in Venezuela, as you can imagine. Okay, great.
And check the levels.
Oh, there I am. Where am I?
levels.
Turn around. Okay, how are my
Check the
levels?
because you might be a little on the high
All
side.
right, how am I doing now? Okay, great.
And Shannon has saved the day by engineering, and we can't believe you made it. We all guessed
there I am.
that you wouldn't.
From halfway around the
Shannon,
world,
come in here.
literally.
Let
I mean,
Shannon
I
stand
gotta share
behind us.
the frame with this
Yeah,
guy now.
stand
Is that okay?
Oh.
All right.
There we go.
Well, I was
Take
in.
that camera up a teeny bit so that we can see Shannon.
Okay. I don't know which one it is.
Careful,
One and
Yeah.
pan tilt.
All right,
Oh, the other way.
the other way.
you
There
go.
we go. There. Oops.
All right. Oh,
All right,
yeah,
now you
over
can
there.
stand up, Shannon.
All right.
There I go.
Now you don't have to
Hey,
crouch.
you don't look like you have a tan. Are you sure you weren't hiding in Brooklyn or
I
something?
was in the
Is it?
city of Caracas, Venezuela, which is the biggest city you've ever seen, 5-6 million people. And I met a very interesting guy, Carlos Escavera, who is the...
I'll say hi to Sante, too.
Hi, Sante. How
Hi,
you
Paul.
doing? I don't know where I'm looking. I'm looking in every different direction. Hey, Sante. Hey, everybody. And I met Carlos Escavera, who's in the Congress of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, who is the main representative of President Hugo Chavez in the government of, in the Congress, the legislature of Venezuela. And I also visited a model drug treatment facility, which is one of the new developments of the government, the Bolivarian government of Venezuela, to reach out to the country's teeming population of poor people. It's one of the poorest places I've ever been in many ways, but it's an amazing country where the people are trying to use their resources, their oil money, basically, from sending us their oil to make a better life for
Well, why
their
don't you let
tens
us
of
ask
millions
you a
of
few
society.
questions?
Go right ahead, yeah.
the camera on us for a second?
Is it?
No, you're on. It's on
okay,
two.
there you go.
Okay, so
All
here
right,
we are with
guys.
Sante Scardillo, Shannon Taylor from The Conversation, and I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi. Paul DiRienzo has just walked in, rushing from the airport from Venezuela. So anybody want to ask him anything?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
Shannon.
go right ahead.
How
Hold
do you
on.
find Chavez? That's my question. How do you find Chavez? Is he a tyrant? Is he holding on to power too long, or is he an environmentalist? What is he exactly doing for South America? Is he trying to unify the country, the continent? Is he liked? Is he disliked?
It's all those things. Every one of them is true. And I hate to answer you that way, but every one of those, he's doing wonderful things, and there's great things that are being done. Yet I met and I have dear friends who lost their jobs because he closed down television stations. I have no love for that act as well in order to silence his opponents. But at the same time, when I asked them that question, I asked Carlos Escavera, who's his #1 guy, that question. He said, listen, we're at war. He said, we're at war. And he said, I asked you, are you
What
at war
kind
with
of
Bush?
war?
Well, I asked, are you at war with Bush? And he said, no, I'm not. We're not at war with Bush or any president of the United States. And he said, it doesn't matter who's president of the United States. He said, we're at war with the oil corporations. We're at war with imperialismo, with all the large oil corporations. And we particularly talked about Exxon, which is particularly a company that they're battling with right now. And he said that in war, you use tactics, and that you wish you didn't have to use, but you do use them.
Well, that's very interesting because that's the same kind of rhetoric that the leader of a certain country, which I don't want to name right now, uses for a present war that I think he calls the war on terror.
Well, I don't want to, we have tapes. We're going to play the interviews and let people make up their own minds. I did see a tremendous amount of poverty, and amongst the poor people in Venezuela, a lot of support. But among a lot of middle-class people, there are problems because, yet at the same time, even people who didn't like him are happy with a lot of the change. They said, if anything, he's really getting the poor people in Venezuela to sort of wake up and think about their position, because before that, there was very little going on. And that was one of the
Well, we just have a few seconds left, and in that time, I want to say it's great that you made it, Paul. None of us thought you would.
This is an intrepid soul.
Yes, it
I mean,
is.
this is somebody that
You
nothing
better believe
stops.
it. You don't know the half of it.
And I want to thank Sante Scardillo for
Thank
coming in
you.
as our guest,
Thank
and
you very
let
much.
us
It's
know
been
when
a
your next
pleasure.
show is so we can let all the viewers
I
know.
will.
And mostly thank you to
I'm
Shannon
the least
Taylor.
positive person here.
That's okay. Everybody's entitled to their
A
personality.
Band-Aid stops me.
Well, thank you so much for coming in
pleasure.
and helping
A
us
privilege
out.
and a
much.
pleasure.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
So
it,
we'll see you
Sante.
next week, everybody.
And we'll see you. Thank you very much. We'll have more about Venezuela and about Hugo Chavez.
Congratulations,
in future
Paul.
shows.
All right.